So we want to continue this conversation. For that, we've reached Cam Kowalski. He spent more than 30 years as a police officer and most of that time on the front lines. The former RCMP officer joins me now from Hamilton, not far from Hagersville, where a constable, as we've been talking about, was killed this week. Cam, thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for having me, Arthea. It's unfortunate circumstances, but I'd be happy to provide some advice and some words on this particular incident.
To that point, what has it been like for you when you hear, and there's been a number in the past few months, when you hear a bulletin that an officer has been killed in the line of duty?
It really shakes you to your core. I've been retired for almost 5 years now, and you know, when you get the notices and they come via either texts or emails from friends or on LinkedIn or other means, it's just shocking. It's just demoralizing. The circumstances are tragic in this particular case with Constable Greg, and you know, your heart goes out to the family, his friends, his colleagues, all the people now that have to live with this for the rest of their lives. It doesn't go away. Once you're a police officer, you're in for life, so to speak. And it's every time it happens, it just you think about your own career and say, well, that could have been me at any given number of times throughout my 30-plus year career.
And you know, when we're looking at the numbers of officers who are killed while on duty, certainly there appears, as we heard also from the Police Association spokesperson, that there appears to have been a bit of a surge, that number has increased recently, although it's far less in years previous. Now, the year that I hear from my producer, the year that you were thinking of going into policing, there was also a huge surge in the number of officers who were killed on duty. So how did that impact then your decision?
Well, my decision was very early on in my life, so I was committed to doing that because there was a number of reasons I wanted to be a police officer and join the force. At that time, it was Hamilton Wentworth Regional Police, but I started my career back in 1984. Which seems like an age ago, although I remember it quite vividly to this day. But in 1984, we also had a large surge of members that were killed on duty, and some of them were very egregious ways, similar to what we're seeing in 2022. And as I was going through police college in 84, every week there was a different funeral being held at Queen's Park. It was unbelievable. So you think in retrospect, did I make the right career decision? Because that could be me any given time during any shift, which is what happened in this case. And you can prepare yourself tactically to be in a good position, not for that to happen, but an outright ambush is almost impossible to defend, and this is what's been happening in 2022 in a couple of the cases. So it just makes it even more unpalatable to think of that this is what happened to this poor young officer.
You know, given the fact that it made you rethink or perhaps temporarily reconsider your career choice, and right now we're facing a situation, seeing with the Canadian Police Association saying that officers, 35% of them went to work when mentally unwell, that there are recruitment, retention challenges. How do you think this might impact that?
It will specifically. During my last years of my career, I did my master's degree in leadership at Royal Roads University. My thesis topic was post-trauma leadership for first responders. And what happens is when something directly impacts the group of individuals that were involved in this case, this young officer's team, his platoon, his shift, this is going to be with them for a long, long time. It hits you mentally. It hurts you to your core, to your soul. And in the early stages, I liked to refer to it as all the king's horses and all the king's men syndrome, whereas the Ontario Provincial Police are going to be providing psychologists and CISM, or critical incident stress management teams, to come out and help all of the police officers and first responders and dispatchers who did a wonderful job too, and they're impacted. But then they all go away after 72 hours to 96 hours. And you're left with just the team members and the leadership of the people that were specifically impacted by this event. So they have to watch each other. They have to look for signs where you're not mentally well, you're not sleeping well. There's other impacts that are happening to your psyche, to your brain. This is going to be with them forever. So they have to be aware of this. The leadership of the detachment has to be aware of this. Family members need to be aware of this. And even if they weren't directly there, they may have been involved. They may have been that dispatcher that was providing that information on the call. So just look after each other, make sure everybody's okay, because this does hit you mentally for sure.
I'm wondering also what you believe might be attributed to this, what has been referred to as an unprecedented number of deaths on duty. We know that police forces have been under greater scrutiny in the past few years. Records published by CBC News show that between 2000 to 2017, there have been an increasing number of people who've been dead or who have been killed during encounters with police. How much does that factor into the way these interactions are happening now, in your opinion?
Well, with that increase in violence, the increase in the violent attitude for I'll call them the bad guys in these circumstances, you have to be tactically aware of what individuals may be able to do or may be thinking of prior to an interaction with those individuals. And because that is increasing, your hyper alertness is increasing as well. So as a police officer now, a routine call such as this young officer went to, which should have been a routine call, maybe you need to position yourself differently or think about the 7 principles and tactics that we're trained in from a recruit right up to when you retire. Again, remind yourself about how to perform a call for service, maybe a little bit differently, maybe a little bit more aware in future, just because of the propensity of violent attitudes of the bad guys and the more weapons that there are on the streets these days. That's also something that you need to consider. Our numbers are significantly lower than our friends in the United States, but still, if these numbers keep increasing, then you need to, as a police officer, just be aware of that when you're going into any situation now where a routine situation may not have put you on alert as you would be to any now call for service.
Cam, thank you so much for your valuable insights on this story today. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Arthi.
Cam Kowalski is a former RCMP officer, and he joined us today from Hamilton, Ontario.